How's it going, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today I am going to be doing a bit of an update slash response to one of my most infamous and popular videos on my channel, where I discussed my thoughts on Doom Patrol Season 1 and how I said that it is an actually bad show. Do I still feel this way? Find out in this video. But because the first half of Season 4 of Doom Patrol has come to an end, and I still watch the show, yes, which in terms of why I still watch the show, I don't really have a good answer for that. Maybe I'm hate watching, but overall, I thought now would be a good time to make this video. And I actually had plans to make this video back when Season 3 was airing, because I thought it would be funny to kind of just talk about whether or not I liked it still, or still felt the same way. And now I think is a good time to do it. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. But first of all, I do kind of want to talk about the stuff I like about the show. I mean, this infamous video I made talking about why Doom Patrol is actually bad was only 3 minutes. Hopefully this video is a bit longer than that. I feel like I didn't elaborate on some of the things I actually enjoy about the show, because there are things I enjoy about it. And by the way, I know this is going to be a controversial video, so buckle up. But some of the things I do want to talk about that I like, for one, I think all the performances are fantastic. Brandon Fraser especially, I love him as the character of Robot Man, to be honest. He definitely is a highlight of this show. And pretty much everyone else, Matt Bomer, April Bowlby, hopefully I pronounced that right, they all are fantastic. I think the cast is great, and that is something that I didn't really bring up in the video where I talked about why I didn't like the show. It had nothing to do with the performances, though, and yeah, I've realized that they all are good performances. Also, I absolutely adore the music in this series. Now, not only am I talking about the soundtrack, the opening credits music, which is fantastic. I mean, that music that plays in the intro is just magnificent, and something that I didn't really realize I loved so much, but yeah, I really do enjoy it. And also just the soundtrack, the songs that they choose. I think there's a lot of great songs, and I actually find myself revisiting a lot of the songs that they play in this show because they're good songs. And yeah, I didn't really pick up on that until later in the series. Also, I think this is just a well-made show overall, just in terms of its production. I do think the cinematography is quite good. However, now we start getting into the bad stuff, and now I guess we can kind of answer the question, is this show still bad in my opinion? Yes, but I actually have different reasons. For one, it's not that this show is just simply not for me, because yeah, this show is not for me, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't really care for the show's humor. Humor wasn't really that interesting to me, and I think I made a point in the last video talking about how it doesn't make any sense how any of these characters got their powers, and it doesn't really. But then I did get some people in the comments saying that it's very similar to the comics. I've never read the Doom Patrol comics, so you know what? Good for you. Maybe I just don't like Doom Patrol. The characters or the story, which, yeah, let's get into that whole debacle. I don't like the story. But this leads me to my main point in terms of why I don't really like the show still, and that's simply because it's freaking repetitive. At least in my opinion. But now that I realize what the show truly is about, I can kind of understand what they're doing with the show, or at least attempt to understand what they're doing with the show, because the show, at the end of the day, is about mental illness. And I kind of think that's really interesting. But the way the show goes about this is not very interesting, because again, it feels super repetitive. I feel like each season there's just a new wacky threat that they have to deal with, and for the most part it's just these characters not really changing. I mean, they change in certain ways, but it just feels like there's not enough character growth for me, and it's just mental illness, let's mope around, and I'm crazy and I have problems and whatever. And I understand why that would definitely be interesting to some people. I almost view it in the same vein as something like The Sopranos, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. And Tony Soprano's a character that, while he does change throughout the course of the series, he actually kind of doesn't simultaneously, which is kind of interesting. I mean, at the end of the show in The Sopranos, I'm not going to be talking about too many spoilers here, but At the end of The Sopranos, Dr. Melfi basically tells Tony that she can't help him, so he hasn't really changed. And at least that's the way I view the show. It's a man who can't really change, and I think that's kind of the way Doom Patrol is to a degree. Although there's a little more progression in certain characters. I mean, just the episode I watched recently, Season 4, Episode 6, when Robot Man finally takes the oven mitt off, and I think that is kind of a big progression for his character. And overall, I don't know, though. It's still repetitive to me because it's just, what are we doing, man? I don't know. I don't really find it to be that interesting, them just kind of moping around. And I get it now, though. I understand more what the show's truly about and the mental illness factor. And I feel like I should enjoy it more than I do because, well, for one, I suffer from mental illness, but obviously nothing to the extent that these characters suffer through. I mean, I feel like that's obvious. I mean, they're dealing with, like, crazy stuff, zombie butts and whatever, and just other things with their powers and their abilities that they've been given to them and all that mumbo jumbo. But I'm actually quite sad. I feel like I should enjoy this show more than I do. And I remember being really excited when they first announced it, being interested, just because it was a new DC show, and obviously I love DC, and I was very interested. I didn't know much about the comics and Doom Patrol in general, which, yes, I'm admitting that now. I feel like that's something I didn't really go into in my first video where I discussed why I didn't really like the show. I never read the comics, and again, some people say that this is accurate to the comics, but I'm sure there's definitely different adaptations in the show that are slightly different from the comics. But again, this whole show is basically about mental illness, and I think that is interesting, but the way they go about it, I think it's quite just repetitive. I don't really think there's enough character growth for me, and I mean, that's all it is. Like, I just don't know. There's not like a larger story going on here. Maybe the larger story is the mental illness factor that these characters are suffering through, but I don't know, man. It's something that really upsets me because I wish I could enjoy the show more. But again, there are still aspects about the show I enjoyed. Again, the performances, I think the production's pretty well. I mean, sometimes I guess the CGI can be a little weird, but it's definitely better than something that's like on the CW. And yeah, I mean, again, also the humor doesn't really work for me. I think that's another thing I did briefly mention in my video I'd made before, and in this video, the humor doesn't really work for me. I don't know why. It's just too much sometimes, and it's too wacky and zany, and it's just not for me. And then I guess this kind of also leads us to the question, why do I still watch it? I briefly talked about how maybe I'm just hate watching it, and that's very likely that I'm just hate watching it because I don't know, I have nothing better to do with my time. But also I have this weird thing with TV where it's like once I start a show and I get pretty far into it, I have a hard time stop watching it. But again, I do enjoy certain things about the show, so it's not like I hate the show entirely. And, part of me definitely wants to see just where the show's going. And actually, I think Season 3 is the best season of the show, in my opinion. It's where I kind of started to understand a little bit more why people were starting to like the show so much. But I do think it's kind of interesting as well. I haven't heard many people talk about Season 4 so far, at least on Twitter and social media. I don't know. I mean, I feel like not many people are watching it right now. I could be very wrong. Probably am. But yeah, overall, that's just kind of my quick thoughts on Doom Patrol and where my head's with it right now. That's just kind of my thoughts and how I'm feeling about the series. Of course, let me hear your thoughts on the show. I know most people like it, and of course, I understand why some people would like this show for sure. I'm not trying to like bash fans or anything. I'm not trying to hate the fans and say they're stupid for liking the show or anything. Simply just my opinion. And of course, maybe let me know some more just thoughts on why I should enjoy the show, or stuff like that. I don't know, or more like just kind of dissecting the show for me, because I haven't really picked up on many reasons why I should enjoy it apart. But I am starting to understand more things about the show in terms of like the mental illness factor, which is something I didn't really pick up on in my first video and when I watched Season 1, and I think that's kind of cool, but again, I still have my issues with the repetitiveness, but now I'm just talking in circles. Anyway, guys, yeah, let me know all your thoughts on this down in the comments below, and if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.